All right, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to do kind of a review for Dune and Philosophy. I'm going to do the review up front. This is a great book. I previously talked about this book. I had only read the first section. I will link the first section of this book in a free, it's been uploaded for free, so you can listen to section 1. There are several sections in this book. The first section contains 5 essays. And I felt that was the weakest section of the book. I did like Dr. Kara Kennedy's opening essay, but I felt that the book really picked up after that, after you get through that initial first section. Now, there's a lot of topics covered in here. We get into everything from the politics of Dune. We get into talks about the Republic, Plato's Republic, okay, and his form of government, which you actually see in Starship Troopers by Robert Heinlein. That whole book is based upon the idea of the philosopher king. All right, that whole layout of society, Robert Heinlein, that is the structure of the politics within Starship Troopers. He touches on that. The various writers touch on that here. And there is a whole talk about the ethics of creating a Quetzalcoatl, a super being. Okay, is it ethical? Is it not ethical? There's an essay that covers that. There's an essay that covers making machines in the likeness of a human mind. That's in here. Very interesting stuff. I thought that this essay number 9 was fantastic because it talks about Alan Turing, the Turing test, the imitation game. By the way, if you want to see this imitation game in action, all right, go watch the movie Ex Machina. I recently reviewed it and talked about it. Great movie. It touches on this whole idea of can machines think, right? We're getting into that. That's in this book. This book is, I thought this book was fantastic. But what I really want to get at today, here's another one, Golas. The Golas in the universe are based upon the Golem from Judaism, especially mystical Judaism, as outlined in the Babylonian Talmud. These golems, or the Golas, appear once you get to Dune Messiah. And then throughout the rest of the series, we have this Gola, which is essentially it's a clone, but it's a clone from, dead inanimate flesh. It actually, this chapter on the Golem, you can tie it into Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Effectively, what Victor Frankenstein creates is a golem made from human cadavers. So Frank Herbert's series touches on this. It all ties back into this, the Golem, right? This is from the Babylonian Talmud by, Abba ben Rav Hama. Okay, and then this is from his extensive study of the book of creation of the Sefer Yetzirah, an early work of Jewish mysticism. So he and his companion Rabbi Zera practiced the art of creation by making these calf golems, and then they make a human golem out of clay. There's actually a old, I think it's a silent horror film called The Golem, where you can see this happen. This is kind of like where Frankenstein comes from, in a way. The Frankenstein's monster. All right, so very interesting chapter of the book. But what I really wanted to talk about, probably my favorite chapter in the book, and I'm going to go into a deep dive on this. So what do I think about this book? Pick it up. If you're a Dune fan, you've read Frank Herbert's 6, Dune books, pick this up, read it. You're going to love it. It's great. Get through that first section of the book. The rest of the book makes up for whatever is lacking there. Fantastic. It talks about fate and predetermination, versus free will. There's all kinds of really interesting things in here. And I kind of wanted to get into, this was great too. Thatched Cottages at Courteville, Hegel, Heidegger, and the Death of Art in Dune. So you get into the later books, it talks about the thatched cottages, Corderville. This is a painting that Vincent van Gogh did, which is in the possession of Reverend Mother Daria O'Drade. And he's going to get into this whole thing about basically the philosophy of art and tie it back to Plato, and it's great. But I really wanted to just get into the chapter that I found probably my very favorite chapter in the entire book, which was, I think it was chapter 19 here. Okay, and this is titled, let me see, That Which Does Not Kill Me Makes Me Shai Hulud, Self-Overcoming in Nietzsche, Hinduism, and Dune. This is by Steve Bain, right? This opens up with a quote from Children of Dune by the Lady Jessica. So it says here, life is a mask through which the universe expresses itself. We assume that all of humankind and its supportive life forms represent a natural community, and that the fate of all life is at stake in the fate of the individual. Thus, when it comes to that ultimate self-examination, the amor fati, that's important. We stop playing God and revert to teaching. In the crunch, we select individuals and we set them as free as we're able. So that's Lady Jessica and Children of Dune. He's going to talk about this self-overcoming. He says here, quote, one of the major themes in the Dune novels is what Friedrich Nietzsche calls self-overcoming. This is an internal struggle against one's own physical, mental, and moral limits and pursuit of a more powerful form of self-expression. The Fremen and the Sardaukar captured the concept perfectly by situating them on a hellish planet. Frank Herbert commits entire cultures to Nietzsche's famous maxim, that which does not kill me makes me stronger. All right? It's going to get in then to, basically the idea is that the struggle for survival, okay, is what makes the Fremen strong, because Arrakis is such a harsh planet. It's the same thing that makes Seleucus Secunda, the planet that the Sardaukar, the prison planet, is what makes the Emperor's Imperial Fighting Force strong, is the struggle. But going to tie it into this whole idea of the amor fati, as quoted by Lady Jessica Atreides, Children of Dune, which is the love of fate. The love of fate. So, several of the concepts, this is going to pass up. Now, I'm going to go on spin off on my own thing here and not really talk about all of this, but talking about predetermination, free will, comes up in other chapters of the book very early on, and I think it was in that first section of the book here we have it touched on, about Leto's Golden Path. This is Ethan Mills' The Golden Path and Multicultural Meanings of Life. Okay, he gets into it a little bit. Here he talks about Sisyphus, the myth of Sisyphus. All right, and so I'm gonna drop this now. Go off on my own. So Sisyphus was cursed by the gods in Greek mythology to push this boulder up a hill, forever. That he pushes the boulder up, and then it all resets, and he has to do it again and again and again. And he's in this constant loop of always having to push this boulder, and it's suffering. It's a punishment. The whole thing that Lady Jessica is talking about here, the amor fati, is a reference to Friedrich Nietzsche. Now, Nietzsche talks about this amor fati. He brings it up. It's a love of fate. All right? And he gets into it here in book number 4 of the Gay Science, or the Joyful Science, which I have here. And let me see. I'm going to pause this for just a second. And here's what Nietzsche says. He says, here we go. This is from, this is aphorism 276 from the Gay Science. He says, I am still alive. I am still thinking. I must remain alive, for I must continue thinking. Sum ergo cognito. Cognito ergo sum. Because I think I am. I think because I am. Is that how it is? Yeah, that's Descartes. I think, therefore I am. I am because I think, therefore I am. So he's kind of like flipping those back and forth. But he says, today everyone's allowed to express their fondest thoughts and wishes. Well, I too want to say that this is that I have wished for myself today what thought first crossed my mind at the beginning of this year, a thought with which I may justify and to which I shall pledge the rest of my life, a thought to render my life sweet. I want to come to regard everything necessary as beautiful, so that I will become one of those who makes everything beautiful, amor fati, the love of fate, to love fate. He says, from now on, let that be my love. I do not want to wage war against the ugly. I do not want to accuse anyone. I do not even want to accuse the accusers. May averting my eyes be my only negation. All in all, on the whole, someday, I hope only to be an affirmer. So there you see this whole concept of the love of fate. And one of the big themes of Dune is fate, as I said, versus free will. Now, all of humanity seems to be trapped in prescience. The prescience, Frank Herbert uses the prescience that you get from consuming spice. The prescience that, for instance, the Spice Guild navigators use to navigate their ships, fold space, or that Paul uses to see various tracks of the future, and he gets locked into this, what's called the prescience trap. Leto II will then, come into the scene in the middle of the books. And by the way, if you haven't read the 6 books that Frank Herbert wrote, there's spoilers all over. It's dealing with these big overarching themes of the prescience trap, the golden path. And what Leto is trying to do is to free humanity from this wheel of fate. All right, so he's trying to create humans that can break free from fate, that are able to transcend it and go beyond and then have free will. So there's this like wrestling between free will and a predetermined future that runs throughout all of Dune, and trying to break out of it, to free yourself from the wheel. I guess the wheel of time. I guess we're going to get into this again with Robert Jordan. So the whole thing of Sisyphus, and this is a big thing in Nietzsche, is to embrace the struggle. The amor fati, as it's called here, the love of fate, is to embrace your, flaws, I guess, essentially. So in the first book, Lady Jessica, the Bene Gesserit they have this elaborate breeding program where they are trying to breed a superhuman, the Quetzalcoatl Haderach. Lady Jessica disobeys. She does not follow the instructions of the Bene Gesserit. She's only supposed to have daughters. She chooses to have a son because she loves the Duke. So she lets her passion, her love, override her rationality. By the way, that's one of the reasons why Nietzsche says utopias won't work, because human passions are always going to override rationality. We're not rational. This is why utopia will never work. And by the way, Fyodor Dostoevsky will agree with him and say the exact same thing in Notes from the Underground. Notes from the Underground, which I also just finished reading, I'll be talking about in a future review, really sets up this whole thing about it's an attack on the utilitarian argument, utilitarian societies, which Nietzsche also agrees with. Utilitarianism will not work because of passion. So the Lady Jessica destroys the Bene Gesserit plan because of love. Well, she resolves in that book, in that first book, when she's talking to the Reverend Mother Gaius Mohaim, she says that she has chosen to not regret her decision. She's not going to feel bad about it. That's amor fati, embracing your, whatever, embracing it. Embrace what you've done. You can't change it. You can't fix it. It's there. Again, we're going to talk about Star Trek for a second. This is like Star Trek 5, a maligned movie. But there's this character named Sybok, okay, Spock's half-brother. He has this ability to like mind merge or whatever, and he helps Dr. McCoy relive a moment where McCoy is struggling with what he did was to euthanize his father. to free his father from his suffering. And he had a hard time dealing with it. Well, Sybok, lets him relive that. And then through that reliving of the experience, he's talking to Sybok, he's like healed, I guess. He comes to terms with it. Sybok then turns to Kirk, says, "Let me help you." And Kirk flips out. He said, it's probably the best scene in the whole movie. He says, "No, I refuse." And then Bones says to him, "Jim, he took my pain." And Kirk basically says, "Damn it, Jim, you're a doctor. You know better than that. Pain can't be taken away by the wave of a magic wand. They're the things that we carry with us that make us who we are. I don't want my pain taken away. I need my pain." So that whole speech about needing your pain, that is amor fati. Okay, loving your fate, embracing the struggle, not trying to be free from the suffering of life, but to embrace it. Now, we're talking about two different things here. We're talking about fate versus predetermination. We're talking about these really heady concepts about suffering. Nietzsche, the whole thing about the Fremen society is that which does not kill us makes us stronger. It's the struggle that makes us strong. Okay? This is why utopia leads to stagnation. This is why Arthur C. Clarke's book, Songs from the Distant Earth, I read it and I was like, yeah, this is pie-in-the-sky utopian bullcrap. There's no struggle. There's no fight. There's no human irrationality that takes place in that book at all, which makes it completely unrealistic. This is why Fyodor Dostoevsky's novels are great, is because they involve struggle and suffering and people acting irrationally. Okay, so Nietzsche and Dostoevsky have a lot in common, and I find the same theme in Frank Herbert's Dune. All right, like people don't behave rationally. They make crazy decisions. The whole problem of the whole Dune universe and the galactic jihad caused by Paul and everything all stems from the actions of Lady Jessica Atreides, because she didn't act rationally. She followed her passion, her love for Duke Leto the First. Okay, breaks the whole thing and leads to all of the trauma and struggle and the galactic war. Everything that happens is a result of her choice. As she says, quote, in Children of Dune, right? The whole thing is embracing the amor fati. She's going to love her fate. So she's a Nietzschean character. Further give this whole thing about this fate, the idea of Sisyphus eternally pushing up the boulder. The idea is for Sisyphus, like, if that's his fate in life is to eternally push this boulder for all time, then he has to learn to love it, to take joy in it, to not try to escape from his fate, but to learn to love his fate. You see this in Nietzsche's idea of the eternal recurrence. So this is from aphorism 341, The Greatest Weight. This is again from The Gay Science or The Joy of Science. He says, quote, "What if one day or night a demon came to you in your most solitary solitude and said to you, 'This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live again, and innumerable times again, and there will never be anything new in it, but rather every pain and joy, every thought and sigh, and all the unutterable, trivial, or great things in your life will have to happen to you again, with everything in the same series and sequences. And likewise this spider and this moonlight between the trees, and likewise this moment, and I myself, the eternal hourglass of existence will be turned over again and again. With it, you, speck of dust." So he's basically saying, if in the middle of the night this demon came to you and said, you have to live, your fate is locked, and your existence, you have to relive your entire life from cradle to grave all over again, exactly the same as it is now. You can't change anything. You're fated to it. Right? Like, that's it. That's your existence. That's all you can do. That is eternity, is to live it over and over again. This life, exactly the same. Every pain, every joy, all of it, exactly the same. How would you react? He says here, Would you not throw yourself down and gnash your teeth and curse the demon who spoke to you thus? Or was there one time when you experienced a tremendous moment in which you would answer him, "You are a god, and I have never heard anything so divine"? If that thought took hold of you as you are, it would transform you and perhaps crush you. The question with regard to each and everything, do you want this again, innumerable times again, would weigh upon your actions with the greatest weight. Or how well disposed would you have to become to yourself and to life that you might long for nothing more than this final, eternal confirmation and seal. So, if this is kind of a thought experiment, if you had to live your whole life over exactly as it is now, you could change nothing from your past. You know, so many people are trying to escape from the pain of their past choices. And yes, this can be a very good thing. But ultimately, we can't change the decisions that we made. We're locked into them. So the whole thing is embracing the struggle. Like Kirk says, I need my pain. Right? That the pain itself is transcendent. That the one or the fleeting moments of joy in our life, okay, the fleeting moments of joy, whether it be, you know, whatever, I don't know what it is, your marriage, your wedding day, the birth of your children. These are joyous moments in life that make it worth living. That most of life is struggle and it is pain, and that if you had to relive it all over again, there's all these moments in your life that you'd be like, I don't ever want to experience that again. That was horrible. I went through all of this psychological trauma and pain at that point in my life. There's nothing you can do to change it. Can't go back and change it. So embrace it. Like, integrate the pain. Transcend it. It's the pain that transforms you and makes you better. Now, I'm going to take you back to this. This reminds me of something that I was told when I was going through Coast Guard boot camp way back in the day. I had a Chief Petty Officer, Schlemmer, and he told us the story of a butterfly, the metamorphosis, right? The process of becoming something greater. This is very Nietzschean, this idea, okay? He said, to us, as we were struggling, after we've been PT'd forever and we're all collapsing in the sand after doing a run and everything else, we were punished because we lost our colors. The guy that carried the guidon, our colors for our company, our colors were stolen by another company, and he did end up recovering them later after this event. They snuck out in the middle of the night and they stole our colors back. So crazy stuff happens. But as we were getting PT'd and punished, he said to us that we needed to embrace the struggle, that we were weak, that we were all just weak, and this was part of the breaking us down mentally and physically when you go through the boot camp, is to transcend yourself by being deprived of sleep, by being put through physically grueling punishment. You become almost have like an existential crisis. And then after that happens to you, they break you, they reform you, they build you into a new person. He was talking to us about the process, biology of a butterfly, that a caterpillar goes into a cocoon, and that when it emerges from the cocoon, it's transformed into this thing. But part of that struggle when the butterfly emerges from the cocoon is, you know, it's struggling to free itself. So he told us the story of a gardener one day who's in a garden. And the gardener comes across this butterfly emerging from a cocoon, and he sees that it's struggling to escape. So what he does is he takes his shears and he snips the cocoon so that the butterfly is able to get out. And he walks away, pleased in himself because he helped this butterfly, you know, escape from the pain of the struggle transformation. But what that gardener did not realize is that he had consigned that butterfly to death, because escaping from the cocoon, the butterfly's fight to get out of the cocoon, is what causes the blood to go into the wings of the butterfly so that its wings unfurl, they pump full of blood, and then it's able to fly. If the butterfly does not go through this struggle, as this man did in himself, pleased in himself because he says, I have freed you from your pain, that butterfly is now consigned to doom. Its wings will never unfurl because the key component, the struggle, okay, is what made it able to fly, is what made it, what finished the transformation. So his note to us was, the struggle is what defines you. It's always stuck with me. I've carried that with me through all of my life. And pain is a reality. Okay, so I think there's a lot of wisdom in Nietzsche. I don't agree with Nietzsche on everything. Obviously, I'd have qualms with this as a Christian. I don't believe in the wheel of fate. I don't believe in reincarnation, that we're all in this wheel of time and that we reincarnate. I believe in linear time, that there is a telos. As a Christian, I believe that there's a genesis, in the beginning God created, and that there is an end. Okay? That there is an end point. But nevertheless, this idea that's here, that Frank Herbert touches on, that Nietzsche touches on, of the amor fati, learning to love your fate, learning to embrace the struggle, learning to love your life, all of it, that even if you're experiencing tremendous struggle, tremendous pain, that life itself is worth living. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. And to take joy in living. I think that's what Nietzsche is getting at. The joy of a sunrise, the joy of the beauty of a flower, the joy that you see in the face of your children, the warmth of a fire on a cold day. That those little moments, life is littered with pain, but the little moments, life is basically struggle, but it's the little moments in between the struggle, those little parts where we get to stop and have a breather for a few seconds, right? And for me, that's what the divine liturgy is. When I go to services every Sunday, is that my work week is a struggle, but for those 2 or 3 hours on Sunday morning when I'm in the divine liturgy, it is a respite. It is a reset for my week. And then in a sense, the week does reset. It is a wheel, the 7-day week, that Monday through Sunday, we get through Saturday, and then Sunday, boom, we start the next week over. That Sunday, when I go to divine liturgy, that little respite from the struggle of life, where just for a few hours I can just go, and relax and reset myself for the struggle of the week to come, it makes it all worth it. Therefore, amor fati. Learn to love your fate. Great book. Great book. Don't agree with Nietzsche on everything, but when you eat this, what they say, eat the meat, take what's good from it, eat the meat, spit out the bones, the parts that you don't agree with, the parts that don't, line up with your worldview, spit them out. You don't have to take all of it. You could say, this is great stuff. I take that. I integrate it into myself. This thing over here I don't like. Spit it out. Eat the meat. Spit out the bones. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.